morning and welcome back to Football League World TV. We've got an Under the Microscope show for you this morning where we're going to be looking ahead to the League One playoff final between Sunderland and Wycombe at Wembley tomorrow. I'm your host, Alfie Burns, and joining me are my two colleagues, Marcus and Adam. Marcus, how are you this morning?
Yeah, really well, thanks, Alfie. Really set up to be a great game. I think the League One playoff final, we've got the fairy tale story in Wycombe and the Giants looking for redemption to climb back up the ladder. So, yeah, looking forward to getting into today's show.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great game. Adam, you looking forward to it?
Yeah, very much so. I think the psychological factors are going to come into play. I think, it's going to be just about as much of a mental game as it is a physical game. So I'm very excited about this one. I think it'll be more even than many people would think.
Absolutely. We're streaming across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter this morning discussing the League One playoff final. So if you're joining us and want to get yourselves in the comments with your prediction, we'd really like to hear from you. And just any sort of topic of debate that we're discussing, if you want to send in your thoughts, we'll try and get them up on the show. Before we look ahead to the final, let's just reflect on this two-legged semi-finals. Sunderland beat Sheffield Wednesday 2-1 on aggregate to progress to Wembley and put themselves within 90 minutes of a championship return. Marcus, looking back on Sunderland's two legs with Sheffield Wednesday, do you think that they deserve to be at Wembley?
100%, yeah, fully earned the victory. I think they could have beaten Sheffield Wednesday by more than a one-goal scoreline in the first leg and then had some good chances to go 2-0 up on aggregate before Lee Gregory, levelled a tie at Hillsborough Stadium. So, yeah, Sunderland fully deserving for me. Neil deserves so much credit for switching up the formation, getting those trio of really exciting attacking players in Pritchard, Clark and Patrick Roberts operating behind Ross Stewart. So no doubts for me. Sunderland completely deserved it. I know Sheffield Wednesday finished the season really strongly and commanded a lot of respect. Were even favourites, I think, going into the playoffs with the bookmakers. But yeah, Sunderland did a job on them completely. That partnership between Danny Bart and Bailey Wright really developing nicely at the heart of defence. So yeah, no doubt in my mind that Sunderland have earned their spot at Wembley after finishing the season strongly themselves as well to ensure that they didn't miss out on the playoffs. So no, Sunderland coming into this one in very good shape and definitely deserve to get the better of the Owls in the semi-finals.
You agree with that, Adam?
I mean, as Marcus said, they were absolutely dominant in the first leg. I think they were surprisingly dominant, to be honest with you, just how much they were, because I thought it'd be a reasonably kind of even tie, knowing that Sheffield Wednesday have got the second leg to pull it back. I thought it would be a closer tie in the first leg, but they were so positive. I wouldn't say Sheffield Wednesday had a huge amount of kind of opportunities in the second leg, even come back to Hillsborough, which is kind of testament really to the Black Cats. But I think their positivity alone really in the first leg, Sunderland, and their kind of spirit really at the end to get that equaliser and still their place at Wembley, I think they deserved to be winners on those two factors alone. So, and as well as that, Sheffield Wednesday had a brilliant home record before Sunderland came there. I think in the league scored perhaps over 2 goals per game, something like that. Had a fantastic kind of home record in terms of results as well. So, to go and get an equaliser, I think was a massive achievement for them. And they came up against a very accomplished team that could easily have gone back to the championship with their quality, but came up against an accomplished opposition, passed the test with pretty much flying colours, I think, and fully deserving of their victory.
As for Wycombe, then they finished the regular season in 6th and had the difficult task of manoeuvring their way past MK Dons over 2 legs. They did so with a 2-1 aggregate victory. Marcus, I mean, you've got to say that Wycombe deserve to be here, given that they've overcome the third best team in the division.
Yeah, they were so impressive in doing so as well. That 2-0 first leg, of course, being crucial in the tie at Adams Park. And I almost think that taking on MK in the semi-final could set them up quite nicely to take on Sunderland in the final. I'd expect the Black Cats to possibly have more possession with such a big pitch at Wembley Stadium. And I think MK Dons, a lot of people were taken by that hammering that they handed out at Plymouth Argyle on the final day to give themselves almost a chance of getting into the top 2 on the final day. So for for Wycombe to creep into sixth spot. Remember, they started the final day outside of the top six, so MK Dons almost did a favour to let them into the playoffs, and then they ended up knocking them out. So no, completely deserved. Had to really call on all their defensive resilience, and now in that second leg, the 1-0 at Stadium MK. But in the end, yeah, that they completely deserved it. Ainsworth has been a master of these kind of ties, and I think that he's a big figure of why most people are giving them a good chance in the final. So no, yeah, completely deserved. We saw the form that MK Dons put together pretty much across the whole second half of the season. So to concede just once against them in 180 minutes of football is a pretty incredible achievement, to be honest. So yeah, Wycombe will definitely be backing themselves going into this one, having an extra bit of confidence after finishing in sixth spot and in the end progressing well. It was only one goal in terms of the aggregate scoreline, but it was quite comfortable in terms of not needing to go to extra time and penalties, and particularly that performance at Adams Park really laid down a marker that Wycombe are here to be counted in the League One playoffs.
And Adam, how do you sort of view it? Wycombe must be full of confidence having got past MK.
Absolutely, and I think the thing that gives them an advantage going into this tie is the fact that MK play a decent brand of football, and I think that Sunderland do as well. You know, with those 3 players behind Ross Stewart, I think they're going to be really exciting. So to beat the third best team is a real achievement, and considering that MK Dons were fighting for automatic promotion and looked good for automatic promotion at one stage. That they can take a huge amount of confidence from that. But Wycombe utilise their strengths. There's no doubt about that. You can't get away from the fact that both of their goals were headed goals, really. Jacobson, I think, is a real game changer for them. And they just made the most of their strengths. And I think, that's a credit to them, really, because that they looked as like they did their homework as well on MK Dons as well, and they prepared well. And I think going to Stadium MK and only losing 1-0 and managing to hold their nerve, I think that's just about as an impressive result as the one that they picked up at Adams Park. So fully deserving, I think, of their place at Wembley. They give them a huge amount of confidence, and they always find a way to get results. So I think they'll definitely have a lot of confidence coming into this game.
So as we have it, then we've got Sunderland versus Wycombe in the League One playoff final. They've played each other twice already this season. Sunderland 3-1 winners at the Stadium of Light, and then a dramatic 3-3 draw between the pair back in January. Marcus, can we take anything from those games looking ahead to this playoff final then? I know a lot's changed at Sunderland since they last met in January.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to remember that Lee Johnson was in charge of both the matches in the league, and they have definitely been approaching matches quite differently since Alex Neil came on. I think that was maybe a symptom of where they were in the league and the need for them to push themselves back into the playoffs initially. But that they do look far more solid defensively since Johnson's departure on the whole. Ross Stewart has scored 4 goals in those 2 league head-to-heads, so he's going to come 4 goals in his last 2 against Wycombe. I think that'll give him a lot of confidence, and potentially if he's able to occupy the Wycombe back line, if he's able to occupy them and distract them when you've got the players of the attacking talent around him, then I think that could be a very dangerous part of the game. I think Stewart, a lot has been made of the goals he's scored this season, just missed out on the Golden Boot in League One, but I think his back-to-goal play is very impressive as well, able to bring other players into the game and hold the ball up really well, usually playing on his own up front. I'm not sure it will be the front 2 that graphic suggests. I would expect Alex Pritchard to have a bit more of a free role in behind Ross Stewart. So that's the main standout sort of thing from the 2 league head-to-heads. Obviously, Sunderland taking 4 points off Wycombe, but Ross Stewart scoring the 4 goals has got to give him some kind of edge psychologically. His form did drop off towards the back end of the season, of course, grabbing that crucial goal in the first leg against Sheffield Wednesday. But being an opponent that he's been able to score goals against this season should definitely give him something going into the final. And there's just so many angles of attack for Sunderland that Wycombe really are going to have a lot to contend with.
Talking of psychological edge then, heading into this game, Wycombe, they've not played Sunderland many times in their history, but they've only won once against them. And in the last 3 meetings between the pair, Sunderland have scored 3 goals in each of those games. Again, Adam, stats like these, you think they're irrelevant going into a game like this, or do you think they'll play a part?
You know what I mean? You look at back at that 3-3 game, and it was a game of high importance. I think it was second versus third at the time. So this could kind of be a similar game, really, in terms of how important it is and kind of the intensity. So you could take something from that. But again, as Marcus said, they're going in with it now with a different manager, Sunderland. So perhaps they'll take a different approach to that. In terms of Wycombe, I think they kind of may set up to frustrate to an extent. I think whatever way they can win by hook or by crook, I think they're gonna go ahead and do that. Whereas I think Sunderland supporters will expect kind of a more expansive kind of brand of football or style of play going into this one. So I think in terms of Wycombe, they've got the license to kind of do exactly what they want really going into this one. And I think the Wycombe supporters will trust Ainsworth. And they've had the most recent playoff kind of final experience as well, obviously winning against Oxford. So I think they've definitely got a real chance kind of coming into this one. I think a lot of people are expecting Sunderland to win as well, so I think that kind of gives them that kind of underdog tag. And even on BBC Radio Berkshire last week, Gareth Ainsworth was saying he relishes that kind of underdog tag. So I think that will play into Gareth Ainsworth's hands really. And yeah, as I said, the psychological factors in terms of perhaps even having a smaller crowd might work in their favour. If they unsettle the Sunderland fans, and that could work for them. But yeah, I think the one disadvantage that they do have is that, as I mentioned, Sunderland are under a different manager. So could that be kind of a disadvantage to them in terms of the way that they prepare and the way that they set up? I'm not 100% sure, but there are plenty of factors kind of in favour of Wycombe, and that's the reason why I give them a real chance.
Team news then. We'll start with Sunderland. Alex Neil has stated that he's not just struggling to select a starting 11, but also his subs. Sunderland nearly at full strength for this playoff final, given that marker. So are we expecting to see a similar side to the one that overcame Sheffield Wednesday?
I am, yes. I can see maybe an idea as to why Neil would potentially go a little bit more attacking against Wycombe. I think he was definitely aware of the threat that Sheffield Wednesday posed and the way that they would potentially be able to control the game if Sunderland were misfiring in the final third. So I can potentially see him going a little bit more attacking, but I can see him deploying some more attacking tactics, even with an unchanged side from the one that started the second leg. Just looking at the graphic there, it's got it in a 3 at the back formation where it was a 4 at Hillsborough, and it does seem to give some further attacking license, particularly to Lyndon Gooch, getting him further forward rather than back in a right back role. I think there'll definitely be a temptation to start Nathan Broadhead, given how strongly that he finished the season before missing out on the majority of that playoff semi-final due to injury. But of course, Ross Stewart performing very well all the same. I rate Elliot Embleton and Dan Neil very highly as attacking midfielders that could come on and have a big say on proceedings. So I think Neil will be relaxed. It's a good problem to have, isn't it? Worrying about who you're going to leave off of the bench. So he'll definitely be confident that he can affect the game, even if it does not go his way initially. So no, I am expecting probably unchanged from the side that got past Wednesday in the second leg. Yeah, Broadhead is one that will definitely be nagging away in the back of his mind, but I could potentially see him coming on to play maybe the majority of the second half if Wycombe are able to stay in the game for that long or maybe even go ahead. So yeah, I would expect him to go unchanged and then possibly look to the bench a lot sooner than he did at Hillsborough if Sunderland are drawing or behind in the game. So yeah, it did look like a settled side. They are building some strong partnerships on the pitch. So I see no reason why he would make any changes, and apart from potentially Broadhead, just because of the quality that he offers, he does look like a player that should be playing above League One level. As
for Wycombe then, Gareth Ainsworth has said that they're refreshed and ready after their semi-final success against MK. Adam, are we expecting too many changes? He did name 2 unchanged 11s for the semi-finals against MK.
No, I think I'd be absolutely shocked really if he even makes one change really. I think that they've got a settled starting lineup. Even the subs, kind of in the 2 legs against MK Dons, they didn't really have a massive opportunity to make a real impact. And even in the second leg, they only made 2 changes really. So I think that it's kind of clear really that Gareth Ainsworth kind of trusts his first 11. I think in terms of Wycombe's left-hand side, I think that could be crucial, kind of a real kind of area that they can perhaps take advantage, especially with, I think, if Sunderland do go with Lyndon Gooch perhaps at right back, then I think that Jordan Abita kind of on that left wing, he used to play obviously as a left back at Reading. So I think that he can help to kind of soak up that pressure. And he could perhaps even kind of exploit that space maybe that Gooch will leave. I'm not sure if he's kind of Abita is kind of the exact player that's going to, exactly outpace many people, but he's certainly useful. And obviously having Joe Jacobson there, and having Abita there to support him, I think in terms of Jacobson, I think it's worth having him there, kind of on his set pieces alone. Obviously for Tafazoli's goal, I think he was absolutely fantastic set piece, really. So I don't expect any kind of changes, and I think that any changes now would kind of unsettle the team, and I don't think there was really any tweaks that he really needed to make. Nothing kind of stood out for me in those 2 legs that made me think he needed to change very much. So I'd go with an unchanged starting lineup, and with McCleary in there as well, you've got plenty of championship experience. So I can't see him making any changes really.
Earlier in the show, Marcus, you touched on Ross Stewart and the goals that he's scored against Wycombe this season. You also discussed the creative sort of talent that's behind him in the Sunderland side. As for Wycombe, where do you see their main threat coming from in this playoff final?
Well, obviously, they're going to be far more direct than Sunderland, I would expect. There's going to be more stress on them needing to get the ball forward quicker, because I would expect Sunderland to have far more possession and potentially on the counter being an area that they can exploit more. It is about, I mentioned Ross Stewart's hold-up play, and that I've been impressed with it this season. It's nothing compared to a seasoned pro in Sam Vokes. I mean, he's been able to show his skills in that department in the Premier League for some years, and he is probably the most important player on this Wycombe team sheet going forward. Obviously, Gareth McCleary's had an outstanding season and will be sort of rising to the occasion at 34. You never know, this could be the last match of sort of this stature that he's involved in his career. So you have to look at that duo. They've done it before higher up in the EFL pyramid, and that they will be inspired to upset the odds and really rise to the occasion. I think Vokes is a huge player for Wright and Bath to contend with. They haven't really played against strikers of that calibre in League One with too much regularity. We saw the goal that Vokes scored against Milton Keynes Dons. I would expect Sunderland to potentially deal with a threat he poses a bit better than them, but he's still going to be a huge player on the day. And Abita is a player that I think goes under the radar a little bit. Finished the season really strongly. Ainsworth is a master of this, signing players that seem to be at a bit of a crossroads in their careers, maybe falling away from their real peak, and just rejuvenating them and making them become really valuable players in his squad. So I definitely look at those 3 players in terms of how they can hurt Sunderland. The rest of the midfielders, the likes of Gape and Scowen, I potentially look at their out of possession work being a little bit more important. But Vokes will be a really good focal point for them to hit, and look to spring out against Sunderland. But in terms of how Wycombe hurt them, you can't look too far away from set pieces. I think Joe Jacobson's left foot has been a trump card for them for so many years now. It worked in the playoff semi-final. It did in the playoff final against Oxford in 2019-20. So I think if they can hit Vokes and get into advanced areas for some long throws, free kicks, corners, then that's the main area where they hurt Sunderland. But it's going to be interesting to see how Sam Vokes steps up to the occasion. I think many people were surprised to see him drop from the Championship to League One last summer. It's going to be interesting to see how Sunderland contend with him, as in terms of calibre of strikers, he's right up there in this fixture.
Sunderland fans are not going to thank us for this, but we're going to touch on their playoff record. They've never won Football League playoff final in their history. Adam, are we expecting that to be playing on the players' minds, or will it just be the supporters?
To be fair, they've endured some absolutely horrific times at Wembley. The 1-0 I think against Charlton was particularly heartbreaking for them, especially coming in the last minute, really. But I think in terms of their Wembley demons, I think they banished them last year really with their Papa John's Trophy win. So I think that may work in their favour, perhaps. I think they may have banished those demons there. I guess this is a much bigger game, really. Obviously, they were competing for a trophy in the Papa John's. But I think in terms of this game's going to be more important really for their history. So that may kind of work against them in a way. Obviously, a huge kind of expectations. There's going to be a big crowd behind them. Obviously, bigger than Wycombe's crowd. Firm favourites to win. So, you kind of say that's a little bit of a recipe for a disaster, really. But I think fans backing in the end could be absolutely crucial for them. It could work one way or the other. I think Sunderland fans need to get that place bouncing really to give them the very best chance of getting the victory. But it's not going to be straightforward for the Black Cats. I think this is going to be a really tough game for them and tougher than I think many fans will be expecting. So, you just hope really that, for Sunderland's sake, that Alex Neil's kind of previous playoff winning experience with Norwich will kind of come into play and will help them. Obviously, as I said earlier, it's a new team, it's a new manager as well and a new setup. So I think that they have every single chance really of getting the victory, and I still think they're favourites to get the victory. But it's not going to be straightforward for them. So it'll be interesting to see really if they do kind of take the lead, if they go on to add to that, or whether they kind of slip back.
As for Wycombe, then they've won 2 of their 3 previous AFL playoff finals, including the 2020 final against Oxford. That was played behind closed doors. So a big change in that Wembley is going to be at near capacity this weekend. Marcus, a little bit more pressure on this final then for Wycombe.
Maybe, yeah. I'd say coming up against Sunderland almost takes the pressure off, more so than it was against Oxford United. Wycombe were in and around the automatic promotion places for longer in 2019-20 than they were this season. The way that playoff sort of competition came about, there seemed to be a little bit sort of more pressure on them having been when they were earlier in the campaign and then fallen away. I think the mental side of the game is something that Wycombe have really mastered, and there's been a key area which has enabled them to overperform over so many years, really. So I don't really doubt the occasion or the presence of fans or the lack of presence of fans really affecting them too much. I think they can see that in a positive way. And I think the pressure as such could be something that is much more difficult to sort of deal with for Sunderland, given the average age of their squad. They've got quite a few players on loan as well. And the pressure of having more supporters at the ground, and of course their Wembley record sort of edges me towards Sunderland, as in having concerns about the effect of the occasion more than I do Wycombe. So it'll be completely different, a very different feel to obviously that 2019-20 final, but I think overall the experience will stand them in good stead and only really fuel belief that they can upset the odds tomorrow. So it's going to be really fascinating to watch. I'm sure the supporters will be out in force for both sides. It's going to be a really intriguing spectacle.
Before we get into some predictions, then Marcus, I think it was you said to me previously that often in the playoffs, it's not necessarily the best team that comes out on top. It's often the best manager that can manoeuvre his side through the playoffs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I did think you did say that. And out of Alex Neil and Gareth Ainsworth then, who do you think's got the edge in the dugout?
A great question. I'm stumped, to be honest. They're so even. Alex Neil was obviously achieved promotion to the Premier League via the playoffs, which gives him something over Gareth Ainsworth. He's got way less managerial experience, but in terms of his CV, you would have to say it's stronger than Ainsworth, who's been at Wycombe for so long. Although Ainsworth hasn't had the opportunities that Alex Neil has had previously in his managerial career, so it's a really tough one. I rate Gareth Ainsworth so highly, to be honest, that I think if some Premier League clubs are worried about getting relegated, we see these small jobs come in. They usually go with an old guard appointment like Alan Pardew, Nigel Pearson, something like this we've seen in recent years. I think Gareth Ainsworth deserves a crack at something like that, to be honest. He's able to organise a defensive side just so well out of possession. So it's a tricky one. It's hard to judge Ainsworth's ability due to the limitations that he's had financially with the jobs that he's been in. But the miracles that he's worked with Wycombe are greater than the miracles that Alex Neil's worked at Norwich and Preston and Hamilton previously. Only just. They deserve a lot of merit as well. So I'd say it's really even. It's a really tough question. I'd probably give the edge to Ainsworth just because of how well he knows his players, his side, that they've been playing the same way for a number of years now. They've got a clear identity, where Neil has only come in recently. Whether that means I think Wycombe are going to win this one, I'm not so sure. But I would potentially lean towards Gareth Ainsworth's Wycombe over Alex Neil's Sunderland just because of the longevity that he's had and the way he's been able to upset the odds. I, for one, didn't even think Wycombe were going to get in the playoffs a few months ago. So to rise above the likes of Oxford and Plymouth to clinch sixth spot is an achievement in itself. So, yeah, I'd probably edge towards Ainsworth in terms of what he's done with the limited resources. But, yeah, it's a very tough question. And, yeah, the two managers completely deserve to be leading their teams out at Wembley. It sums up why we love the playoffs, that we've got 5th versus 6th in League One in the playoff final. So, two great managers that I'm sure it's going to be a fascinating tactical battle.
Absolutely. Sorry for throwing that one at you, Marcus. I just thought it'd be interesting to get your thoughts there. I'll give you a little breather. Adam, let's get your prediction then.
I've got 2012 Championship playoff final vibes. Blackpool versus West Ham. Carlton Cole put West Ham in front. I think Sunderland are going to go in front. I think it was Blackpool that equalised just after half time. I think it might have been Tom Ince actually that equalised. I'm going to go with kind of similar really for Wycombe. I think Joe Jacobson might get on the score sheet, but I think there's going to be a late winner for Sunderland just to kind of make up really and redeem themselves for their late loss against Charlton. I think it was 2019 playoff final. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 Sunderland.
Nice and exciting. Marcus, let's get your score prediction then.
Yeah, I'm going down a similar line to Adam, to be honest. There's absolutely no way Wycombe roll over in this one. Sunderland are going to have to earn this. I'm going 1-1 full time. I think maybe Sunderland take the lead and then Wycombe equalise from a set piece, and then something spectacular from one of Pritchard, Roberts or Clark, or maybe even Embleton or Neil or Broadhead from the bench to win it 2-1 for Sunderland in extra time. But they're going to have to grind this one out. I don't think the fans are going to be able to enjoy the game too much really until it's over. But I do think Sunderland just have the edge here, 2-1 in extra time.
I will be there tomorrow at Wembley representing Football League World. So hopefully your predictions ring true and we get an exciting League One playoff final, not just for me, but for all the avid League One followers that have been watching on all season. Coming up next week on Football League World TV, we will be reflecting on who has reached the Championship out of Sunderland and Wycombe, and also looking ahead to the League Two and Championship playoff finals as well. I'm sure as running you through all the transfer rumours that are floating around the EFL. So please do tune in next week. Plenty coming up, and have a good weekend. Enjoy the League One playoff final and take care.